Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I'm Dr. Joe Hamlett, and alongside me, as you always see or hear, is Dr. Dave Peltz. How are you doing today, Dr. Dave?
Most excellent, sir. Most excellent.
All right. Well, again, you all are in for another treat. We have another special guest on here today. That seems to be a lot more fun than just you all hearing me and Dave talk. So we've actually got a good friend of mine, John Baxter, who's. I'll let him give him a chance to introduce himself. But we're excited to have him on and have a discussion. So, John, if you just go ahead and give a quick intro of who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Joe. Thanks, Dr. Dave. Really great to join you here today, and just appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you guys, and hopefully we can share something that'll help some other people that are listening or watching us right now.
Absolutely.
So I met Dr. Joe several years ago because we're both in the Guard here in Missouri, and got to watch you climb the ranks through our base and then on to lead our state, and always enjoyed the leadership that you offered and mentorship in that. And so just grateful for that, and the opportunity to meet Dr. Dave through you is just a real treat. And so obviously I've got some military background there. Spent several years in education, working as a teacher, a coach, a school administrator, and then moved into working in full-time ministry at one of the mega churches here in Kansas City, and led them as the executive pastor there for about a dozen years. And recently transitioned out of that to start my own consulting firm, and able to still be a part of that church community, and left there. Well, still have a lot of friends there and still attend there, but been taking everything that I've learned and my history with education, the military, and church leadership and executive leadership, and really just trying to apply it and help people move forward, whether that's helping individuals, helping organizations, businesses, nonprofits. It's been a lot of fun, and I know that's pretty parallel to some of the things that you and Dr. Dave are both trying to do. And again, appreciate you having me here so we can talk about helping people move forward.
And John,
Absolutely.
what's your company's name?
Oh, thank you for that question. Yeah, so I have Ryker Strategies, and that's
Okay.
RYKER, and yeah, been a fun name and fun ride so far.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, and so for those that are out there in the audience, we will have his information in the description. So if you want to reach out to John, because again, he's doing some great things. So again, we're happy to have him on the podcast, and again, kind of watched his growth over the past couple of years. So it's been a great experience for me to see that and see him grow. So glad to have him on the podcast. And I didn't say this at the very beginning, but again, thanks for those who are returning, or if this is your first time, thanks for tuning in to the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. Again, remember, we are personal, professional, and career development podcast. That's what we do. That's what we want to help you with. Again, we also have just dropped a free course. So if you're interested in our free course, it's out there. And then we've got a newsletter. So a lot of, like we've mentioned in the past, a lot of things happening with John Sop. So if you want to continue on, then please do so. Again, we enjoy doing this, so we want to continue to do it. So enough of that. We'll go ahead
What's
and
today's
get.
topic, Joe? What's today's topic?
So our topic is moving people forward, and
You mean like
as
pushing
always,
them, like pushing them?
well, sometimes that's what it
I
takes,
remember
a little
the
push.
I remember like the 10-foot slides that were all metal in the summer when I was a kid. You push them down and it's like,
Not that drastic,
oh,
no.
not that kind. Okay. Okay.
Sometimes
Just making
they
sure
may
I'm on
need a
track.
little push. So what we'll do, as we've done in the past, we'll allow John to kind of give his insights on moving people forward, just to get us started
Yeah.
in the conversation.
Oh, thanks. That's a pretty broad topic for us to dive into, right? There's
Yeah,
a
it
lot of,
is.
between personal, professional.
Yeah,
I really enjoy seeing people move forward, and
absolutely.
usually as people move forward, they take others with them, and that's probably one of the more gratifying pieces of being able to work in organizations and work with individuals and coach them. And I would say one of the things that I've seen, probably maybe not most effective, but very highly effective, is just asking people the question of, where do you want to go?
Yeah,
Because you don't know which way forward is until you know where it is you want to go. So we have to know where we're headed to be able to move in that direction,
absolutely.
and then typically work backwards from there, so we can gain some clarity, we can get some context, and then hopefully create a plan a plan to get them there or their organization there, and take some others with them. So I'd love to hear from you too, because I think you are a little further down the path on this with helping organizations and people do this. And I'd really love to throw the ball back because
I'll jump in a little bit. I mentioned this offline just prior to coming on. One of the entities I worked for, and I've worked for several, and I always try to leave a positive mark when I'm there, whatever that is, positive footprint or whatever. And I do that by helping my team, helping my supervisors, helping my colleagues, subordinates, peers, mentor, reverse mentoring, just to really help develop others. And to your point, figure out where they want to go. And then from that point, you help them move forward, you figure it out. And unfortunately, some organizations or some individuals in organizations, they find that threatening or counter to what they want, their approach. Some people want to keep people where they are. And I'm one of those individuals, and Joe's one of those individuals, and you're one of those individuals that just want to see the best out of people at all times. And if they're not happy in the position that they're in, then help them move to the position that they are going to be happy in, because that's only going to make a win for them. It's going to be a win for you because it's going to open up a position on your team to bring someone in that wants to be there. So that's kind of where my mind starts, not the pushing down the slide example, but that's where my mind starts when I think about moving people forward, getting to know them a little bit, understanding what's inspiring them, what their motivations are, where do they see themselves, where do they want to be, what do they want to do when they grow up. Joe and I always talk about that, what we want to do when we grow up, because we've had such a deep experience throughout our life in different positions that there's so many possibilities out there. I mean, there really is. I mean, and sometimes you just stumble on them, and that's what I would tell transitioning military members during some of my briefings is when they said, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, what's fun? What do you enjoy doing? That's where you need to start. Where your enjoyment resides, that's the starting point, whether it's teaching, painting, electrical, working with a church, whatever. What are you passionate about? What do you find gratifying and fun? And then that's where we're going to start going with you, and to your point, reverse engineering these things to figure out what needs to take place.
So I'm going to, add my 2 cents now, because you both have really hit on key things that I like to use. Both of you said building relationships with people, especially if you're leading them. You can't help them get to where they want to go if you don't ask them where they want to go. And sometimes they may not know where they want to go until you start to have those conversations with them to help them understand. Because I think that's a challenge for some people. Sometimes they can't see their capabilities, their strengths, those things that they're really good at. And so sometimes it does take that person from the outside looking in and helping them understand or realize, wow, you do these things great. These are the things that I think you're really good at. And perfect example, like Dave said, getting to know your team. So, I worked at an organization, and the first thing I always do when I have people that I'm leading is I get to know them on a personal level, not just, hey, I know you're good at doing this job that we do every day. No, I want to know, what excites you, what motivates you, where do you want to go from here? How can I help you get to that next level? And, I was really successful at that because like Dave said, some organizations are like, well, don't do that because then we're shorthanded. They're the best person for this job. But at the same time, you're hindering their growth and their development. So yeah, I lost several people because they moved up, they moved on. But for me, that's exactly what I'm supposed to do as a leader. I'm supposed to be developing more leaders. I'm not supposed to be hoarding, the talent, the skills and ability in my one area when they have goals and aspirations of where they want to go. And so that's selfish of me. That's selfish of an organization to try and hold and retain those people. And that's why a lot of times people will leave because they don't have those opportunities to grow and to develop. So when we talk about helping people move forward, it's about, again, understanding what their needs are. And you both said it too, the reverse engineering piece. We always talk about this on the podcast. You have to identify where you want to go, and then kind of do some self-reflection to figure out where you are, and then figure out what it's going to take for you to get from where you are today to that destination. Because me and Dave have said this many times before, if you don't identify your destination or what success looks like for you, somebody is going to jump in there and hand it to you, and then you're going to be stuck with somebody else's dream or their plan of where you should go. So again, I think we're all aligned on what it looks like to help people move forward, to get them started.
I think it was Ralph Nader said, the function of leadership is to create leaders, not followers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think as good leaders, we see ourselves recreating ourselves in other people to move them in to be their best. And when they move off our team, it's not necessarily a loss. Right.
No,
We've created an
absolutely.
opportunity like Dr. Yeah, it's a huge win. We've moved somebody into a place that they can operate at their strengths, and they're going to maximize that, whether it's in our organization or not. It's we're bettering them
help
and
them get
everyone
the
the same
training,
and
the
the
certifications, or the education
absolutely.
or experience that they need. Don't keep them down. And like Joe said, some companies are basically like knowledge hoards or experience hoards. You know, they get all these highly talented people and then just leave them in that one position. And you know, most people have dreams and aspirations to do something better, to get an education, to get certifications, to get the experience, to try different jobs or careers, to find out what really gets them excited in the morning to do it, or at night, depending if you're a night worker, you know. And maybe it's school, maybe it's to get out of one geographic location to another, maybe it's to get into the military or get out of the military, get into a company, get out of a company, you know. Help them. Why not? I mean, and that's one of the things that Joe and I talk about is, you know, we didn't receive a lot of that help when we were growing up. You know, we didn't have that. And that's what's driven us to do this, what's driven us to do John's Hop and to put all this out there, because there's so much experience and that we have, and there's so many talented people out there that could benefit from this that are not getting the help that they need, you know, or the support that they need. So, you know, again, like you all were saying, get to know your people and then support them, you know.
Yeah, because I've been asked this question so many times, especially in recent years. When, since I have accomplished a lot of things that I never knew I was capable of. So I'll just start with that because kind of to your point, I think you said it, John. Help people realize their potential or be the best version of themselves. And it wasn't until later in life that I started to recognize those things in myself. Because, like Dave said, I didn't have an example of what this looks like, what I'm doing right now. So everything we've done, and he said it earlier, we're still trying to figure out what we want to do when we grow up, because we're paving our own way, our own lane to what's next. So that's exciting for us, and that's why we like kids in candy stores sometimes, because it is exciting because we don't know what's next. We talked about the podcast. Took us forever to get started, and now we can't wait to meet weekly and like, hey, what's our next topic? Hey, who we're going to bring on here? Because again, not having those examples and now being in a position where I can help other people or provide maybe some guidance, some mentorship, some coaching. That's what I know I'm supposed to do. And kind of to your point earlier, when you talked about the leader, building leaders, again, that's our role, not to build followers, people to follow us. And I guess where I went kind of down a tangent, but what I was going to say earlier was the fact that, in recent years, people always ask me, so what's your level or measure of success? And you said it early on, John, it's not how many accolades I put on my wall, but it's how many people I can help along the way. So that I'm not up at the top by myself, but I'm bringing all these people with me, and then they're bringing people. That's my measure of success. How many people I can help get to that next level.
Love that. Love it. Yeah. That's why I enjoy being here with the two of you. I feel like we're all so like-minded and just want to see people win, and however you define winning in your own context, that's what we're here to do. I'm curious to hear from the both of you on what are some common pitfalls that you see that keep people from excelling into that best version of themselves? I think we've addressed, like Dr. Dave talked about, maybe a system or an employer or something at a macro level that's might be preventing that. I think about people I've worked with, they come up with unrealistic goals, or they have these aspirational core values. It's not really a core value. It's something that you wish was a core value for you that holds them back or doesn't allow them to to move their team forward. What are some pitfalls that either of you have seen?
I'm gonna pause for a moment before answering, and I'm gonna ask you the same question. What do you think
Yeah.
are some of the pitfalls that are holding people back? Because Joe and I could talk about this all day. we want a chance to hear from you.
Yeah, and part of this is I'm being selfish. I want to learn from you too. It's things that I see are lack of confidence. I think like Dr. Joe talked, and even Dr. Dave, I think you talked about like, hey, I didn't go to college right out of the bat because I didn't know I could actually go get a degree. And so I see people that just, you can see the potential in them, but maybe they don't see it, or nobody's ever given them that confidence. And so just that, the courage to take a step. I think Dr. Martin Luther King was the one that said, you don't have to see the entire staircase. You just have to take a step.
Right.
And so I think courage and confidence are two big ones I see that really hold people back. And I think there's this misnomer about when you maybe you meet a CEO of some enormous company. And I've had the opportunity to sit in the room with some of these, or go to dinner with some and have these conversations, and you realize, well, that's just a guy, or that's just a woman.
They're just like you. Exactly.
They have a spouse or kids, or they've gone through horrific things in their life, and they're just, some of them would literally say the same that you are. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm like, you're leading a $4 billion company. Like, do you, we think that they're at this place, and really they had the courage to take a step, and sometimes they didn't have the confidence.
Yep. Well, John, you did touch on a couple of things. The one you talked about was maybe realistic goals. And I think that right there deters a lot of people. I'm a perfect example of that, because that's exactly what happened to me when I went back to school much later in life. I started looking at, okay, I want to achieve my degree, but I started looking so far down the road, because I'm thinking I'm going to get this done in a year or 2 years, and I'll be good. But the reality was it was going to take me 4 years, maybe 5 years, and I wasn't ready for that. So I was almost ready to throw in the towel, because I had these expectations that I was going to get it done a lot sooner than I thought. And so that immediately became a, struggle for me, trying to determine, okay, am I going to continue this, or am I just going to say, you know what, I'll go ahead and push forward. That's one thing. And then the other thing you mentioned, I kind of touched on it before, not having examples. So not having anybody in my corner, to help you, give you a little confidence boost or any of that stuff. So a lot of things that I've accomplished to this date has been done mainly by myself and my family support. But that's kind of a uphill battle sometimes when it's just you. You don't have the support. Even when you're reaching out for support, you don't know where to go, or you're hearing the naysayers. Why do you want to do that? So that's the other side of it. You get beat down so much that you're like, it's not worth it, because you're trying to go somewhere. You have all these roadblocks, all these barriers. And I think for me that was helpful, because it motivated me to want to prove myself to all these people that were trying to hold me down or trying to push me back, trying to place these barriers in front of me. And it just fueled me. It really did. And so, but that doesn't do that for everybody. Some people, they take a little more encouragement. They take a little more, push, like Dave said, pushing them down the slide. It does take a little bit more of that. But fortunate enough for me, I was able to be fueled by my own passion and by my own desire to, prove people wrong. And what was funny was, as I started going down that path and gaining some of that confidence, then other people started to recognize that. And then I started getting assistance from people that saw that I wasn't sitting back here saying, oh, woe is me. I was kind of raising my hand. Hey, I want to go there. And so that's what I started to notice, was that people saw me, because I saw myself in a different place. And I think they saw that as well. And then they started to help me. So that, and I tried to,
and when you start helping them, and they see what you're doing, then they want to go with you.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was going to go.
And they're pushing you at the same time.
Yep.
Both of you are going up. So you feed off of each other. And that's a great thing to see, because you know, 1 and 1 is not necessarily 2. It could be 10, 20, 50. It could be,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
infinite. You know, when people get together and start working towards a common goal, it's amazing things can happen.
Yep.
Yeah, well said. I think that's something too that I found in working in coaching and consulting, which I know both of you do. And I think about a phone call that I had with a guy 2 weeks ago. And, you know, obviously for our bottom line revenue, I would love to do 10 coaching calls with this guy,
Right.
but it really only took one. I
Yep.
listened to him,
Yep.
you know, which I think as good leaders, we know you're going to get further down the road if you listen more than you talk.
Right.
But I listened to him, and at the end of it, basically we came to the conclusion. I said, so it sounds like you need to go work somewhere different. He was like, I do.
Yep.
I said, okay, so what do we need to do? He's like, well, I guess I need to fix my resume and then start applying. I said, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
But
and
that's
sometimes
literally,
that's what it boils down to is people needing a sounding board or just being
that's right.
Yep.
validated, you
Yep.
know, in what they believe instead of being pushed down and you know, suppressing their ideas and their dreams, encouraging them, you know. And you know, I'm going to go back to the, you know, military transition briefings I did. You know, people, you know, and it doesn't just apply to the military. It's any company. When you're going from one position to another, or one company to another, or one entity to another, organization to another, you know, it's a change, and it's a big change. There's going to be cultural differences. There's going to be probably a little bit of culture shock depending on the differences between the organizations, but it's just a new environment. So what do we do with that? Well, you guide them, help them understand what they're seeing. And if they say, hey, I'm not happy where I'm at, that's okay. It's okay to not be happy, but what are you going to do about it? You can't just
Right.
sit there and curl up into a ball. I mean, you should probably go through that process once or twice. That's always fun. But
Yeah.
I mean, but don't stay there. How do you get up? How do you keep moving people forward if they feel stuck?
I think that's a good point, John. Like you said, a lot of times it may be difficult to hear, but this person sounds like they came to that resolution kind of they've realized it that they needed to move on, and sometimes that is difficult to hear for people, especially if they've been at a job for a long time or in a position for a long time, and understanding. And because I guess I can say that because that's what happened to me. I was in a position where I wanted to move on and wanted to do a lot of things, but I wasn't being allowed to do that at that organization. So the realization was that I had to move on, and for me, that was the best move I could make. And so a lot of times we like I
And I
say,
like what you just said there, Joe. It was the best decision you could make
right,
because, you
that's
know,
good.
right versus best. And I'm going to say it was also probably the right decision and the
right,
best
yeah,
decision, because not every right decision is the best, and the
right.
best is not always right. But you were able to find that balance, and that's what's important, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, it took me a while, not hitting my head up against the door, wondering why I can't move forward, and then it really dawned on me I can't go forward here. So and I think we talked about this before. Being that square peg, trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I no longer fit the organization, and so that I'd been there a long time. So for me to walk away from that, it was a challenge initially, but again, at the end of the day, it was the best decision and the right decision. So,
Yeah, there is a difference. And thinking about this gentleman I'm referring to in particular, I heard it said that the three hardest words in the English language are "I need help."
oh,
You know, as Americans, especially, right? We're our whole country's founded on freedom and independence,
right, yeah,
and so to to be a guy who's been working at a company to say, I mean, really, he called me saying, "I need help,"
right,
and I think both of you have probably had lots of those calls where it's someone that's just saying, hey, I need help. And coaches and
right,
consultants, that's what we do. We're in your corner,
yeah,
and we're there to bring perspective and help. And our job is kind of like a good doctor. We don't want to see you every week. We want to get you healthy and help you move to
right,
where you're
absolutely,
going.
yep,
And
yep,
And we may
uh,
have to tell you things that you may not want to
yep,
hear, like
yep.
you need to stop eating so many cookies, Dave.
He never listens though. So.
no, he's listening about the skincare piece, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I caught on to that.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. That you're right. we have this plan set up. Okay, we want to see you this many times, but the idea is to get you out of there as soon as possible, to get you progressing, moving forward, so that you can start to, move in the direction you need to go. And so, it may not be, like you say, the bottom line doesn't like it as much, but the idea is to help people move on, move forward. So how we can do that, as soon as we can do that, the better for them as well. So
yeah, yep. I'm curious, do either of you have like a favorite tactic or strategy that is kind of your go-to whenever you're trying to help people in a certain situation that's coming saying, hey, I need a little help right now?
I think, go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, my first meeting with people is just to hear. You said this early on, to listen, just to and then start making mental notes, making notes of what I just heard them say. That I want to move, I want to go to school, I want to whatever it is, listening to them and then repeating it back to them, but maybe changing it to a way that it makes sense to them. Okay. And so a lot of times it's just that, you said this early too, the clarity piece, that they just need to understand how to maneuver. They have all this in their head, they finally get it out. And then your job is to help them figure out how to get to the next level. So the biggest thing I offer is, again, that listening piece, just so that I understand where they're trying to go, what they're trying to do. Because some people just may want to be, advance in the organization that they're in. Some people may want to change careers totally. So it just depends on what they tell me they need. And then from there, we can start working on what that plan looks like.
And I concur 100%. That's you pulled the words right out of my brain. It's to me, it's getting whatever's in their head out and then sorting it out to help them see what was really up in there. And that was one of the exercises Joe and I did this past year, with this other company. This gentleman was brilliant. He had all these great ideas, but he needed help getting them out. And then once we listened to him and figured out what was in his head, we started organizing it, and it was a phenomenal idea. And it's a great thing to be able to do that, to help people declutter their mind, I guess.
Right.
So we've got about 3 minutes left. So just as a little time check. So
all right. So again, this time has flown by, like always when we have a good conversation. So John, is there any final thoughts that you have on moving people forward?
I would say that at least what I just heard Dr. Dave refer to is it seems like we're better together, that we get further faster together, and that sometimes we need those outside perspectives. We need to be able to say, I need help. And so when your client comes to the two of you and has this great idea but just can't get it out there, you spend a little time, you ask some questions, you listen. And so in the end, I would say, to move forward, I think that we're better together, and sometimes we need a little help.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that, because I think we actually have a podcast on that, better together.
And for me, I'm going to go back to one of my supervisors. He is a great man and an awesome coach and advisor to me. And he said, you need to understand whether you need to push people out of the gate to get them to move forward, or you need to hold back the reins so they don't get out too fast. It's just understanding what type of person you're dealing with. What's their motivation? Are they hesitant, or are they wanting to go? They might want to go, but they might need to be pulled back on the reins a little bit. Conversely, they might not want to go, and they need a little shoving to get them out through the gate.
So just my final thought is, I started with this, and I think I say this in most cases, it's about building relationship with whoever you're trying to help. I mean, you can't, you can assume, you can, think that you know what they want or need, but it's not until you build that relationship with them to see what their strengths are, to see what they, their areas of opportunities. And then from there, you can start establishing, I see you're good at this. These are some of the things that you are, really strong with. These are the things you might need some assistance. And then you're able to make that determination. They don't think they're strong enough. And then that might be when I get behind them and push them a little bit and say, hey, I think you should go for it. I think you should try it. Or, like you say, they may think they have it all and they try and run out there, and maybe you pull them back a little bit and say, hey, I don't think you're ready for that. And
Or
so,
not so fast.
right,
You
or
could,
not so, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I think it really still comes down to building that relationship or establishing that relationship where they trust you, you trust them about where they're trying to go. So, well, it's been a great conversation. Like I say, the time just flew by really fast. So we do want to thank John for coming on and sharing his insights on moving people forward. And so thank you all for tuning into another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, please come back. Or if there's someone out there that may benefit from all these different episodes or podcasts that we put out there, please share. Again, we've done a lot of progressing ourselves. We've been moving forward with a lot of different things in our podcast and this platform. So as far as John, we will have his information in the description. So if you want to reach out to him, highly encourage it or suggest it. I think you'll get some great knowledge and experience if you go to him as well. So again, it's been a fun time. So again, thanks, John, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We might have you come back. So with that, I just want you all to continue being your not so ordinary you.